Okay. We're going to call the Wednesday, November the 16th meeting together. It's roughly about 1:02 of the Public Safety Committee. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Tyus.
60 miles of the
It was-
surface, then traveled 40,000
It was
miles
what?
beyond the moon for a glimpse of the
Please, yeah, okay.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page.
Present.
Alderwoman Keys.
Here.
Chair Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. 6 present.
Okay, we don't have a quorum yet, so we're going to dispense with the minutes. I'd like to welcome and thank the police chief for coming in and visiting with us, and we'll end up with a quorum here in a little bit. But Chief, if you want to go ahead, you have a statement you want to read, and certainly please do so.
Yes, thank you.
I'm
I
sorry.
appreciate the invitation to discuss the challenges that we face in policing in today's environment. Firearm laws have been a challenge to us. I listened to the recording of your meeting from 2 weeks ago, and I recall 2 questions that I'd like to address at the outset today. The first was, what instruction do we give officers when SAPA was passed? On August 27th, 2021, then Chief John Hayden sent this message out to officers. Police employees should continue to conduct operations involving federal memoranda of understanding, can continue to enforce federal law where otherwise appropriate, and can continue to utilize NIBIN, E-Trace, and other federal resources without fear of personal liability, threat to post licensure, or discipline. So that was sent out the day before the law went into effect on August 28th. The second question that I recall had to do with the seizure of firearms in public places versus private property. The law, RSMO 21.750, specifically states, in the absence of any reasonable and articulable suspicion of criminal activity, no person carrying a concealed or unconcealed firearm shall be disarmed or physically restrained by a law enforcement officer unless under arrest. So this is a high bar, but it's one that we have to meet to seize a firearm. I'd also like to draw your attention to a relatively recent case regarding mental health seizure of firearms in a private residence. In a recent US Supreme Court case, officers seized 2 firearms from a private residence after telling the owner they would not confiscate his firearms if he agreed to go to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. After the owner left in the ambulance, the officers misinformed the wife of her husband's wishes and took the 2 firearms. Emphasizing the fact that this seizure should take place in the individual's home, this case did away with the community caretaking exception to the warrant requirement. The court did leave open the exigent circumstance and other expectations that might justify a seizure of a firearm. Since then, our courts have made it clear that for police, a mental health seizure, such as a 96-hour hold, is the equivalent of an arrest. In the mental health context, we can take such action only if there is probable cause that a person poses an emergent danger to themselves or others. Taking these cases together, police need probable cause to seize someone for a mental health reason, and we would need to articulate exigent circumstances to seize any gun from the home. I'd also like to briefly discuss the impact of the law on our operations. SAPA appears to prohibit a number of important police duties, and here are some examples. The city enacted ordinance 71041 to complement federal law by creating reporting requirements for failed background checks. SAPA appears to preclude enforcement of this ordinance. Continued use of NIBIN and the National Instant Criminal Background Check System is also impacted. We participate in joint task forces with federal agencies. While acting as task force officers, our officers may effect arrests in this capacity. SAPA appears to preclude much of this, although officers can enforce state laws. Officers may have pending federal court cases in which they are endorsed to testify. SAPA appears to severely limit their testimony. Further, considering healthcare professionals, there's a state statute that restricts the disclosure of firearms. The impact to police is that healthcare professionals cannot disclose firearm ownership information. There are some exceptions. For example, healthcare professionals may, not must, disclose firearms information in response to a threat to the health or safety of that patient or another person. 571.012 states, no healthcare professional licensed in this state, nor anyone under his or her supervision, nor any person or entity that has possession or control of medical records may disclose information gathered in a doctor-patient relationship about the status of a patient as an owner of a firearm, unless by order of a court of appropriate jurisdiction in response to a threat to the health or safety of that patient or another person as part of a referral to a mental health professional, or with a patient's express consent on a separate document dealing solely with firearm ownership. There's also a statute that restricts police records concerning firearms. Information about the possession or ownership of firearms cannot be disclosed to members of the public except by court order to persons having a legitimate interest. 571.013 says, any records of ownership of a firearm or applications for ownership, licensing, or carrying a firearm shall not be open records under Chapter 610 and shall not be open for inspection or their contents disclosed except by order of the court to persons having a legitimate interest therein. I'd like to conclude by noting that we're not afraid to seize firearms. Year to date, we've seized 2,267 firearms in St. Louis. Despite our best efforts, we've only seen a moderate reduction in aggravated assaults with firearms. Last year at this time, we had 2,151 incidents, and this year we're at 1,951, which is a 9% reduction. Firearms are frequently used to commit homicides as well. Year to date, we have responded to 9,638 ShotSpotter calls for service. Finally, I want to remind you that we've got an obligation to enforce city, state, and federal law to address public safety and better ensure our community can thrive. Changing laws as well as emerging case law make it difficult for us because we must consider many aspects of the laws to ensure we are compliant with the law and the Constitution. Thank you, sir. Appreciate an opportunity to read that into the record.
No, thank you. I think I probably got lost a few times, but so this year, you've seized over 2,600 guns this year alone?
Yes, sir. 2,100. See, yeah, this year's 2267
Oh,
so far this year.
And those, so well, I'm glad to hear that.
Most of those are related to criminal activity. So, seizing a firearm is just, it's just part of the job. We do that. It's when we engage people who are in mental health crisis, or there's some kind of question that there's a lot of consultation that has to happen, on the scene between the precinct supervisor and the lieutenant. They got to try and decipher the laws. As I said, it's not just the written law, It's case law that emerges over time as these cases proceed through court. The one case actually straddled the appeal that made the final decision. The U.S. Supreme Court came after the lower court had made a decision based on the facts, but they kind of overlap one another. So these are ongoing things, and they actually changed course. So
So,
it's complicated.
so, and, but I think the guys did a wonderful job on the recent shootings and saving lives. But I just want to get a clear message because it seems like when I talk to some guys, just on, some of the officers I know that say stuff like, yeah, we're not allowed to take those guns, and gee, and I don't know, it's easy to be, what do they call it, a Sunday morning or what's Monday morning quarterback to say,
Sure.
oh, well, only if, but I just wanted to send a clear message, and that, and I have our attorney with us on the line too, but that the police officer, nor you as the chief, if they take a gun and they're wrong when they do it, if the person sues, they have to sue,
Right.
and they win, there is no personal liability for you or the officer. So I just want to send a clear message and say, at the same time, is there something that you would like to see from us? But you're already indemnified. You're not, there's only, and Lou Galley, our attorney, although there's very few things that a police officer can be personally held liable for. And what I'd like to make sure is that we're sending a very clear message. Yeah, we don't want you to just go out and randomly take all the guns off the street.
Mhm.
But if there's even I just don't want them to hesitate or feel uncomfortable. So if there's something that you feel that you would like to see come out of this public safety meeting, whether by resolution or whatever, just reinforces that when it comes to guns, so I want to I'm going to go through the members and
Sure.
then Chief, if there's something you feel that we can do, and then if you can send something out again,
Yeah.
just being real clear that, what, if you're unsure and you think it's probably not a good idea for that person to keep that gun, at least at that time, take it. The only one liable would be the city, not the officer. So, and I have our attorney, if anybody has questions, I'm going to run down the list of committee members and see where everybody's at. And so Alderwoman Davis, did you join us yet? Okay. Alderwoman Howard, you're here now.
I am. I just would like to thank Chief Sack for joining us today and for the very pointed delivery of some education for us all. Thank you very much and for your time. And I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chief. Again, just to commend the department on the incredible swiftness of the actions on that day, the bravery that was exhibited by the officers involved, and just the numerous lives that were saved because of those actions, and because of the guns of the police department. So I know it's a very, very complicated set of issues here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to take a listen to the previous hearing and address some of the concerns. I was going to ask you to quickly, I know the chair had you reiterate some of the statistics, or at least the number of guns seized. Could you run through quickly the other pieces that you mentioned on the front end?
Sure. And if you like, I can email this to you. I've got it written out. So you're
be very
looking for the challenges that we have with SAPA, or the stats?
The stats. So you mentioned the number of gun related incidents,
Right.
or the shot spotters, and how that relates over time as far as a trending where we're going.
Sure. So this year we've seized 2,267 firearms. Last year at this time it was 2,152. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's incorrect. I apologize. I need to break this out a little. So this year to date, we've seized 2,267 firearms.
Okay.
Year to date, we've had 2,152 aggravated assaults by firearm. Now, that's a 9% reduction over last year, which is good, but it still speaks to the amount of firearms that are out there that are readily available for use, and people's willingness to use them. And also a reminder that many of our homicides firearms are used in those homicides. We also had year to date 9,638 shot spotter calls for service. So when you hear gunfire in your neighborhood, I don't recall if we've got a shot spotter, receiver down there or not. It would be recorded in this. You do? Okay,
Yes,
so it would be
several.
captured in this,
Yeah.
right? But there are areas of the city that aren't captured. So there are additional, shots being discharged. If a citizen doesn't call it in, it just doesn't, it's not captured. So that's 9,638 calls for service that we respond to, because we don't know if there's a victim there or not.
Chief, I don't want to disrupt, but just
Sure.
for a quick second, in case you do have to go, I had one of the aldermen said that apparently there were shots fired in Francis Park. The police are there. There were kids by the school at St. Gabriel's.
Right now,
Yeah, right now. So if you do have to go, I understand, and just
Yeah.
don't want to keep you in a meeting if you're needed. Apparently, he said the police are there. But again, it involves St. Gabe's and St. Francis Park and kids and guns. So do you want to check if you do
yeah,
have
we're
to?
checking, and I got everything turned off here. I didn't want to just double check and see. And if I
Right.
do have to go, I'll excuse myself, but I'll be available if you need me again.
Okay, I just don't want, because I'm sure if it's going to be, if it does mean the press, they might.
Sure.
And Alderman Spencer, I'm sorry that I disrupted. So go ahead, and Chief, if you have to leave, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief, for staying with us and for those stats. If you want to send them, that would be really helpful. It's good.
Yes.
It's good to know that the gun violence has gone down. And I also want to commend the department for having sent out an email to officers prior to the law going into effect. I think that kind of proactive behavior is really helpful. I did want to clarify, there's still some confusion on my end, immediately following the shooting, there was coverage related to whether or not the gun in that particular case could be seized. And I think while you read the email on the front end, I think, that for the police department, you guys aren't lawyers,
Right.
so interpreting the law and, having the responsible party being the city, I do think, it is, important that we kind of clarify here, especially in this particular circumstance, but in more in circumstances in general. I want to make sure that you all have the guidance that you need. The governor mentioned that in the cases of individuals that were deemed mentally ill, that guns could be seized. And I wanted to understand, in according to what you just described, the directive here was that that officers aren't personally liable. In this case, in the case of Orlando Harris and his family calling for the removal of the gun from their home, was this particular instance one in which the St. Louis City Police Department should have seized that weapon based on the governor's comments, the laws, and what you described?
So we are appealing the Second Amendment Protection Act. So while the Cole County may have made a decision, anticipate that the city will appeal that decision. And in this particular case, because there might be emerging legal action, I don't want to comment too much on that. But in general terms, our officers, God bless them, it's easy to sit and write down, if this happens, do this, if this happens.
Yeah.
But out there, as you've seen, because I know you talk to our officers, it's a mile of gray. And they have a lot of discretion, and it's important that they have discretion to make their decisions. I always encourage them to contact the supervisor if there's any doubt in their mind, or if they want to affirm a decision they're about to make. And so it's a tough call as far as I'm concerned. If they act in good faith, we're okay. And I think that's what's most important. The law does restrict when we can seize a firearm. The standard that emerged from the case law speaks to emergent, probable cause. So that means that, I'm going to do something now because I'm angry. So at that point, it would be okay to take a firearm. But when is something, what's your probable cause? That somebody is a danger to themselves or others, and that it's emergent, it's occurring now, or is about to occur. So those are the hurdles that we have to overcome. And that came out of a U.S. Supreme Court case. So I don't know that that'll ever change unless there's some federal laws that address that, and the means by which we can lawfully seize a firearm.
Do you feel like the information that you have from do you have enough adequate information from the city to adequately arm your officers with the information they need to seize guns when they can, and when they're when they can't, and that sort of thing? Do you have enough legal guidance to provide your officers with as much information as they need to do their jobs well, protect themselves and protect the citizens of St. Louis?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so. Our academy does a good job providing initial instruction. As things change and emerge and new laws come up, we've got a wonderful relationship with the city law department. We work closely with them. They're actually embedded in our facility here. So we're constantly approaching them, asking them their opinion. They help us craft messages for our officers that go out. So we're able to consult them freely and get information that's timely. They do great research, and they're able to write it in a way that we police officers can understand it. So it's really a good relationship, and I believe we have what we need here on hand.
Well, that's comforting to hear, and I'm glad that you have that level of comfort, Chief. And I think, as these questions continue to swirl and we continue to try to decipher laws, and of course, they are subject to interpretation, as all laws are, and certainly complicated system here with the federal, state, and local laws pertaining to guns in various ways. So I appreciate your educating us on that aspect of it, and the work that you're doing. So, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions at this time. Just to thank the chief for being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we're gonna go backwards up because I saw where the vice chairwoman joined us. Sharon, are you okay, or do you have anything you want to speak to? We can't hear you too good there. You got to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Just ran a little long, my appointment.
Well, it's okay. So do you want to wait to chime in toward the end after here? We're just talking about guns and maybe what we can do as far as the chief. How do we support the chief in the police department if they take a gun, and we're learning a little bit ourselves too.
I would like to speak now because I want to kind of just piggyback off of what the Alderwoman from the 20th talked about. How do you know, is it correct what the governor said? I don't believe it's correct what the governor said at all. And I went and read it after he said it to see where it was in there. Other lawmakers from his very party said that was not correct. So I guess my question, and I'm sorry, good afternoon, Police Commissioner, how are you?
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I heard you say you had a good working relationship with the city councilors. So when new laws come down like this, do you then ask for a city council's opinion about what that means? Or do you have somebody legal within your own organization that kind of says what it means, or what happens? What's the process?
Sure. So we no longer have an attorney that is a police department employee with local control. So that is a function that's provided by the city councilor's office. So they track laws as they're, or bills as they're passed, as they're progressing through the state chambers, and their potential impact on us. If there's one, such as this that catches our eye, we watch it closely. And then when it comes out, they provide us information and guidance. So for example, the message that Chief Hayden sent out right before the law went into effect, and that I'll resend here as well, was written, with their guidance, to ensure that, hey, this is correct, so like there, we assured the officers, hey, there's no, if you got to seize a gun, you seize it. Don't worry about any liability, licensure, discipline, anything. Just do your job, but do it in good faith and do an honest job, and we're all right.
Okay, so, and that's good, because that's toward everybody's safety, the officer's safety, potential victim safety, the person who may have the gun safety, all of that, which is why I hope you all win your lawsuit. Wish I could do something. After the event over at Visual Performing Arts, I turned toward the camera and asked the governor if he would please meet with us. But I had earlier said that he had a meeting online with, and he invited members of the Board of Aldermen, and we were supposed to submit questions. I submitted a question to him back several months before this happening, said, is there any room for compromise about these gun laws you guys keep sending here? I mean, if you think there is a difference between how you should legislate in rural Missouri, because you got farms and pigs and all these other things, which I'm from Central Illinois, so I understand rural, okay? I grew up in a town with less than 100,000 people, and that's okay. So I just don't understand why they think that they love local control. They don't want the federal government to say anything to them, but they don't understand that here in the city of St. Louis, we have a different way that we live life. We're urban, it's a lot closer. People are not used to guns, but he would not answer my question. I submitted it. I'm gonna, we did the resolution. I am about ready to do what one of the aldermen suggested, which is get up on a bus with as many of us as we can and ask the governor and the people who think this is great to just meet with us along with our elected representatives in Jefferson City, which would be the state senators, the state reps or whatever. I come from a gun family. My sister was 23 years in the military. All my uncles were in the military. My uncles shoot right now. One of my uncles, I think, is out shooting. They're hunting deer or rabbit or whatever they do. I don't happen to be that person, but they do, and they do it responsibly. And I think many people do it responsibly, but it just seems like that they do not want in Jefferson City to take into account there are people who, and we're so close up on top of each other than they are, that when somebody gets mad, it's real easy to get to one of our schools or something like that. It's not like I got to drive down the country 5 miles or whatever. And they just seem to be more intent on their right to have guns than our right to live, I guess is what I'm saying. So have the police chiefs ever tried to meet with the governor? What are they saying if you guys try to meet with them? Or, as a group, I don't think most of you all like these laws. So have you all been meeting with the governor or the state reps or state senators or whatever? Because maybe you have more pull with them than we do, because they say they are pro-police, but the laws that they make don't seem to be that way to me. So just my question is, have you been able to meet with the governor or the people who make these laws in Jefferson City?
I have spoken to him on a couple different occasions when he was here in St. Louis, and talked to him about the challenges that we face, and mentioned, the notion of a carve out for us, and if Kansas City wanted to as well. But I know Chief Hayden had gone up there last year to testify, about some of these bills and the potential impact. But I think a remark he made was going there and speaking to them. And I would encourage board members to get your constituents to go and to speak to non-St. Louis elected officials, because those are the ones that you've got to convince, and folks to speak to their personal experience of firearms, the impact of the current laws on them in their lives would be helpful. Now, ma'am, you did mention, you're not sure what you can do. You already are doing something. If you're supporting the law department, then you're supporting us. So it's not just police. There's a lot of different entities in city government that help us, with public safety. It's more than just, law enforcement. It's the legal department is an essential part of our operations. We rely on them heavily. So if you're able to support the law department, you're able to help us out.
Well, I want to say since I've been here the longest before anybody, we always oppose these gun laws in St. Louis. Since 1991, I have been opposing these gun laws in St. Louis. And we had a different membership in Jefferson City, and they listened to us. It was a Democratic membership. And even though a lot of them were from rural Missouri, they did listen and understand. But along the time Matt Blunt became the governor, things start changing. And so things just became, we can't hear you. And I guess the reason why I say I don't know what I can do, we have people that we send to Jefferson City who work with these people every day and talk to them. So to me, they ought to be listening to our state reps and state senators, who most of them, I'm not saying all, but most of them are saying what we are saying and are appalled that we see these young people walking around with these assault rifles and weapons. And I get complaints almost every week about people who are scared to come out on their porches this summer. I'm scared to sit on my porch. I used to like to do that, but these young men are walking up and down the streets. We hear about it downtown, but we don't hear about it. It's all through the neighborhoods, it's at the parks. So it's making us live inside of our houses in fear. And I just don't know if the people who are part of that Jefferson City House or Senate, if they actually talk to our representatives and then they just don't hear them, if we go down there, we're not going to say anything too much different. So short of, we need to get out and start gathering signatures and see if we could do like a constitutional amendment or something like that. Then the best thing I see happening is that the police chiefs are suing and other people are suing. And even that part that they have in there about if you, about working for a federal organization or another state where it's legal. And then if you come to Missouri, you can't get hired because you work. I think all of that is just so illegal. And I think they're going to lose in the long term, but they still are sending such a frightful message to the young people. I mean, if you watch the old Westerns, which I do, we didn't see the blood and gore, but people got killed when everybody had guns and they could walk into a saloon and kill people, okay? They act like that, oh, this was a wonderful time. It was not a wonderful time for young people who are often not in control of all their emotions, or even older people to do that. So for that party of the governors to say we are pro-police and then listen to you if you say you want to move out of our city, because that's what Chief Hayden went down there with former mayor, which I got on his case about it because he grew up in my wards. I'm like, why do you want to leave our city? But if you can listen to the police say, we want to move out the city of St. Louis, when the citizens say we don't want that and voted right after that not to, I don't understand why he cannot hear this is not a good law. So this is not us radical left-wing people saying this. This is many, many different members of the Board of Aldermen, the state Senate, the state House, the state reps, citizens in the city saying we don't want this. And it's not, yes, what happened at the school was horrible. We never thought that was going to happen, but it's been happening around the city forever. And the more that people can do these things, to me, they get to be empowered. Like, I can do that. When older people call me about them walking up and down the streets and they're like, Alderwoman, what can you do? As long as they're 19 years old, blah, 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 they can have open carry. They don't have certain things that have happened. When I tell them that, they are really confused about how are we protecting them? How are we making them safe? And can you give me some ideas of what I could tell them that would make them feel better and safe?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Lawfully, they can do that. We can't, and it's not even cause to stop them, unless they're some articulable activity that they're engaged in or performing, and that would give us cause, there's really not much we could do in that case.
Do you think they would be open to listening to, hey, how about we have 1,000 feet from a school and 1,000 feet from a park? I'm just saying, start someplace.
Yeah.
If you come within 1,000 feet of a school or a park, maybe this is where you can't have these weapons. Is that something you all have suggested or might be interested in suggesting? I'm just trying to find something.
Yeah,
that we
no,
can
that's a
have
good
common
idea.
ground on.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, like I said, I hate what happened. I used to
Yeah.
live over in Tower Grove neighborhood. I hate what happened, but I hated what happened for the last 30 years with increasing gun violence. And of course, when it happens at a school, you get focused on it. But the wider thing is that it is not good in any part of the city for this to be going on, and then we don't address it. And I really thought back when President Obama was still the president and they killed all those beautiful young kids, that would be the end of that. But maybe we all join the NRA and then take it over. How about that? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any more statements or questions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt you, you had asked a few minutes ago about an incident in
Right.
St. Francis Park. It happened about an hour ago. It appears to be a robbery gone bad. The suspect fired some shots. Nobody was injured. He's in custody and a firearm's been recovered.
Okay, I didn't know if you would have to leave. I kind of was
Yeah.
given that sort of from people there that are.
Yeah.
And I figured that since it's a park and they're saying the kids were at recess at
Right,
St.
sure.
Rayfield, I think it was Rayfield.
Yeah.
Or Gables,
Officers-
one or the other. I
All right,
figured they're gonna-
Officers again did a good job.
Oh, yeah.
To Ms. Tice's point, we had two, a teacher and a student, murdered in the school.
Right.
Year to date, we have 171 homicides in the city.
Well, I know.
So those are families, acquaintances, blocks, neighborhoods that are impacted by those events. And if we think about it, the totality, and the bulk of those are killed by firearm.
How,
So
how
it's,
many, how many actual real homicides? Because I know they differentiate the difference between justifiable and not. What's the
Yeah.
actual real number of homicides in the city? Is that close to the real? Or I know now they differentiate how they.
Yeah, so there's an addition to that, we've got 4 justifiable homicides.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
not too bad.
But yeah, so that all goes into, in order to try and have apple to apple comparison, city to city, across the country, the FBI's written rules, so we've got to report compliant to their rules. So the homicide unit may draw, 190 M numbers, but of those, a portion, the bulk of them will be UCR events. So that's what we report out.
Okay, oh, that was when you said that number, I was curious. I'm Alderwoman Pam Boyd, you're up next.
Thank you, Chief Sack. I guess I'm listening, and it just seems as if you all hands are tied, because we're discouraging the police because it's not a support system there for the police. And so you have certain neighborhoods that are really pushing to support the police as much as possible. But I think what bothers me is you have police, and no disrespect to the police department, you all are up against assault rifles and we have pea shooters. And so I think and everybody is applauding the police because you're working with what you have. And that's what's so scary to me. And so my only fear is, and I tell my residents continuously, when you all put those uniforms on, we want you all to go home to your families. And I don't think people have even considered what you all are dealing with, because the crime that you all are dealing with now is more gory than the crime that it was 20 years ago. And so we have children that are dying at the hands of these people. And no remorse behind it. You know, they just okay with it. So I'm just, I applaud you all, homicide, they do send us a report monthly to let all the people know how many homicides, where they are, for what ward. And so I applaud them because we weren't getting that information at first. So I think information is a big piece for us as older people to help our residents understand more. But there's a lot of older people are saying, when you have groups of guys walking around with assault rifles and they just so lawless, and they don't care, from the kids all the way up to the seniors, they just don't care. It's just them or us. And that's how I feel. I'm like Alderwoman Tyus, I feel like I'm in Gunsmoke because that's where we are. And so my husband is a country boy, and he was raised in the country, and they gave them guns when they was 5 and 6 years old, but they didn't give them assault rifles. And he made it clear. He said, Pam, if we use assault rifles, we'd starve to death because it would shred up the meat. We couldn't eat it. So and Alderwoman Tyus had brought up about us taking buses, and the caucus had talked about that. We said we wanted to take bus loads of people up there, the mothers, the grandmothers that have been impacted by these deaths, to sit up at the Capitol to let them know we have to do something with these guns because it's not okay with us. So I thank you all, for what you're doing, but I've never felt so helpless as a legislator, and I never felt the police hands were tied so tight that they just can't get a hold of correcting the law, so thank you all very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. You remind me of a remark. I was at a veterans luncheon last week, and a retired lieutenant colonel came up. He was served in the war in Iraq, and had an infantry unit. He made the remark of how courageous the officers were. He said, I couldn't imagine telling my people to assault a building when the defender is armed with a rifle and they only have pistols. So I don't know that the general public really appreciates the heroism that they displayed that day, knowing that the subject was armed with a rifle and all they had was a pistol. But thank you.
And I think people don't understand too. I give a good example. We had a safety committee meeting, and Sergeant was in attendance at our meeting, and he said that they had limited cars in the district. And so the residents like, oh, we really should see the police. And so I said, no, tell them your district. So once they gave the residents the boundaries, they said, we'll never see the police. I said, no, because you don't have the police to put out there to do the work, the leg work that we need done to address the issue. So I'm a proactive person. I still believe in walking the block and talking to people so the police can know who the good guys and bad guys. But we tying your hands. We don't have the manpower to make that happen. So thank you, Colonel Sack.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't believe Alderman Bosley, did you join us? And Alderman Ryan is at the park, so I know he's not here. I mean, Alderman Oldenburg, I'm sorry, is at the park. I know he's not here. Alderman Ryan, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman Vaccaro. Also like to thank Chief Sack for his time here today. I agree with him when he was talking about an officer's discretion. I know in law school it was taught to me that an officer's discretion is the most important tool that any officer has, is their discretion, especially with the case law consistently changing as it is in this particular instance. I think the best solution here, given what we know, is to contact our state legislature and have them change this law. We're defunding entities that are seeking to get guns out of the hands of people who would use them in shootings like we saw at Central Visual Performing Arts, and to to put officers in a situation where they have to second guess themselves, particularly officers in smaller jurisdictions, smaller municipalities, where that $50,000 fine could really be a major part of the budget, is just insane to me. And so I would encourage anyone who shares these concerns to contact their state legislator and their state senator and let them know that these laws are handcuffing our police officers. And if that was the intent of them, I guess fine, they've succeeded. I don't believe that was the intent of the laws here. I think it was to protect people's Second Amendment rights. I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment, but this law is not doing what I believe the legislature sought to do with this law. Instead, there's been this major unintended consequence. And I think that it's time that we lean on our legislature to right this unintended consequence, and so that we can move forward and get the handcuffs off of our officers and let them get guns out of the hands of people who would seek to harm individuals with their guns. And with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Okay. And Alderwoman Clark Hubbard is excused. Alderman James Page. Oh, he had to go to another meeting. I'm sorry. Last but not least, Alderwoman Keys, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No real comment. Everything that has been said here it's definitely agreed upon and valid. I would like to thank all of the men and women of law enforcement, particularly those over the last 20 years who helped me to do my job as a child abuse investigator. I was a tracker for juvenile offenders, as well as a case manager for federal and state parolees. And all of those entities, I could not have done my job effectively without the aid of on-site police officers. And we forget sometimes that even those in social services, we cannot go in and perform those services without the aid of police officers at the ready to assist. And I thank you for that. And I
Thank you,
yield.
ma'am.
So, Chief, I don't want to keep you any longer. So I think across the board, I think I just want to make sure that, so I understand everything, you're going to send something out again, letting police officers know if you're even think that it's better to take the gun, take it. You're not going to be personally held responsible. The city will. If you feel that there's something that you would like to see come out of the Board of Aldermen to the Public Safety Committee, further holding them, although there's nothing, we can't even do anything to hold them more accountable or less, but if you feel it would be nice to see a resolution that we support them in these things. I would just say if you could let us know.
Well, thank you.
And I really think that was it. It was interesting to know that they've seized 2,267 guns. I think that's interesting. And so I'm not going to hold you anymore. I do appreciate you coming in. I'm going to have you in next week about a whole different thing, and that has to do with I'm wanting to, well, actually it's coming into the street department, Alderwoman Tyus, not me, I asked Alderwoman Tyus. I want to get in the police cars, the fire trucks, the snow plows, the ability as they're coming, and we'll pick some routes, preferably probably snow routes, the ability to let the lights all turn green in the direction that they're going in the case of an emergency, which it would save, well, people that died this year, and a police officer that died just outside of my neighborhood up on Kings Highway. We've had ambulances hit and turned over. So we're going to bug you again next week. And that, again, it's just kind of get an idea of, I'm going to have, actually ask the Alderwoman, but I want to have you, the fire chief, the streets department, everybody together so that we can, come up with what might make sense to make the streets safer. And again, if you've ever been sitting behind a police car or an ambulance while they're blowing their horn, you don't know, do you go? And then the snowplow truck, if you can turn the lights green during a rush hour, you can at least clear the streets a little better rather than sitting in traffic. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, wait a minute, Chief.
Car-
Chief, before you go, Alderwoman Pius, I guess she has something to say.
Yes. I just want to say where I grew up, when the sirens went off, you pulled over to the side of the road. When I came here, this was a different place for me because that meant, oh, hurry up and don't let them by, because that would get you in so much trouble in Decatur, Illinois, where I grew up, if you did not pull to the side of the road. I don't know who taught driver's ed here or training, but we need to have refresher courses, because I have never, ever seen so many people try to outrace the ambulance or the fire truck or whatever. And I don't know why you think that's okay, because if that was your loved one, you would not want that to happen. And is that not still the law here? Isn't that what you're supposed to do, Chief?
Yes, ma'am. It's a state statute, actually, move over law, whether it be on an interstate or locally here in the city. Yeah. Move over.
So, right. I mean, that's great what the alderman is doing, but if people would just start with baby steps of doing what is already on the books, and that's what I would say about, I want to say one more thing about gun control. That stuff starts at home. We're putting everything on the police, the politicians. That starts at home. If your parents, grandparents, whoever's raising you, raises you correctly, then you know better than that. To this day, I'm scared to get arrested by the police, because when I was growing up, my mother would say, and I lived a half a block. One half a block was the police station. If you get picked up at night while you're out hanging with your friends, don't call me, because I'm not coming. Now, literally a half a block was the police station. To this day, when I first went into a police station, I was an attorney with the public defenders, and I was scared to death, because if anything happened and I got locked up in there, my mother was not coming. Now, I've been married 35 years. My mother's still not coming. So I think a lot of this that we put on other people who are talking about this need to start looking at who they're raising, how they're raising their children, because it starts early on about respect and care about community and other people. And it's only so much society can do if you're not raising your children. Thank you.
Okay, and I believe, or you're going to tell me we have a quorum?
No, we need to approve the minutes.
I know, that's why I said we had to have a quorum.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So we have a quorum. Chief, God bless you. Thank you. You don't have to hang out and be bored with us any longer. Thank you for your time today. Having said that, we are going to, Madam, I'm going to, I'll actually make the motion that we approve the minutes of the November 2nd meeting. Do we have a second?
So
Second.
moved.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No, shit.
Alderman Bosley.
I'm sorry.
Alderman Oldenburg.
White shorts, white shirt, white hat.
Alderman Narayan.
Track.
Aye.
Yay, on this.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
He was very tan.
Alderman Page.
He was on a cruise to walk on that cliff.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
He didn't do any.
Chair Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Page. 7 aye votes.
By your vote, you have approved the minutes. So the only other thing on the business, we will excuse the other folks that could not make it for various different reasons. I was getting pages during the meeting. Other than that, unless someone has something they want to share or talk about, we'll take a motion to excuse, or not to excuse, to adjourn.
I so
So
move.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We are adjourned.